10 o'clock.
David on vacation?
And I'd like to convene the meeting of the June 22nd Council of County Commissioners. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please join me in a moment of silence as we think about our servicemen, especially in this time where we're talking about withdrawal, but we're also concerned about the extra danger that our folks might be in because of that. Thank you very much. The first thing on our agenda is public comment. I will say that we have a fairly busy agenda, so I will ask that you limit your remarks to 3 minutes. Mr. Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. I have two issues. And one is in regard to what we just mentioned before the meeting. I was not at the CVEC meeting where they responded to your letter. But I would just wonder if you are content with CVEC's decision. I cannot believe that that is what you asked. My understanding is that a committee was being formed and that some sort of presentation would be offered to us in September. I thought this was somewhat time sensitive and was not something that would be endlessly discussed and put off. So I would ask you if you are content with that. Secondly, on executive session, my understanding from your agenda is you have to go into executive session today to discuss CVEC. But my understanding of your understanding is that you do not have any oversight over a CVEC and CLC. So I find it hard to understand why you would go into executive session on that issue. I hope that your reason will be very well defined and in conformity with the open meeting law. Also, I'd urge you to take a vote. I believe that's part of the legal process on whether or not you will go into executive session. And I hope you'll not set back what little progress we've made in discussing open meeting law and transparency with the Commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Barbara Howard.
Barbara Howard from Harwich. I'm still having difficulty with small governments and trying to figure you out. I have 2 questions, just a yes or no answer, and one hypothetical. First off, is CVEC in any kind of litigation? Can you answer yes or no on this? No?
I can't answer.
And is there any other organization who has been created to provide the municipalities of Cape Cod and Martha's Vineyard a way to work together and integrate clean renewable energy as part of a more sustainable Cape Cod and Martha's Vineyard? Is there another entity that does that? No.
Not that I'm aware of.
Then my suggestion is that according to Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, and Section 10, you don't have a right for an executive session on this CVEC vote. And then I have a hypothetical question, and forgive me for this, but it does bother me terribly. And it is to you. I do not understand why you're protecting CVEC so strongly. And if it's because it's an ego issue and you're protecting your ego, that I understand perfectly. I do it all the time. I need to do it all the time. Or is it because there is future financial benefit? Say, carbon futures. Is that part of what's wrong with you? I don't expect an answer, but I'd like to go on record having asked the question.
I feel compelled to answer that. I have no financial interest in anything with regard to CVEC or hope of any financial gain from it, and I resent that question very much. I'm very sorry, but I take that very personally. All right. Yes.
Kathy Sharman, I'm from Brewster, and I understand why you resent that issue, and I would like to clarify first that I was disappointed in your request to CVEC in terms of, I feel that it's such a narrow scope. Okay, this I feel is not at all just about the Brewster wind turbine project. If it relates to that, it's only whether CVEC or any other entity should go outside of the process, if they didn't like the planning board decision, and that the planning board decision was not a tie vote, et cetera, and the vote was lost. And for the newspaper to quote the CLC chair prior to you, I imagine, and for Mr. McLaughlin to say it's all about Brewster, I think that's wrong. And that's why I urge you to not have the narrow scope, that that there are a lot of issues that we can see, at least in hindsight, from the Brewster project, from the Easton project, from the Falmouth project, all very different. The only involvement CVEC seems to have in Falmouth directly is in the renewable energy certificates. And I do think that that's something, first of all, let me stop and say, unfortunately, conflict of interest has to you the financial motive. To me, it's that you and many people on the CVEC board are coming from bringing wind energy along, and they have a very strongly fixed view and perhaps don't have the expertise. So one of the kinds of things that I would like to know is, structurally, who makes the decision? Who has the expertise to say that Weston and Sampson is the best clerk of the works versus somebody else? And there's just tons of decisions. So structurally, I would like to know. When I say conflict of interest, it is that presumably Mr. Zielinski through his role in the county and Maggie Downey through their role in the county have access to some things that were really a little bit behind the scenes, and that's really all I mean in terms of objecting to new regulations for wind turbines, things like that. So I would like to see it a more global process that looks back. I'm not putting everything on you, on the county, and it's the process in which I feel that we need to make some fundamental changes. Not necessarily as extreme as what Mrs. Downey said in the paper about you saying, she should no longer have this role in CVEC or CLC, whichever. But to look especially at the point when, before the towns were members, and I'll go into more specifics about that before, but yes, I think it's a question because the charter is way broader than renewable energy or financing. Yes, it does involve RECs, and unfortunately, I think that RECs have a strong potential to wreck lives, and that being able to forecast a lot of the complex issues for wind energy on Cape Cod is just really hard and delicate, and the renewable energy certificates could make that a conflict of view or something. I don't know what you want to call it. I do not want to get into the legalistic. Before Maggie went into executive session, I told her that I regretted very much that that's where it's at.
The time for public comment is over.
Mr. Chairman, may I just say something? I've done a lot of,
Excuse me.
if
Can
I
you
may.
tell me why you're going to...
I would just like to make a comment and respond, if that would be all right with you.
Well, what do you think, Pat?
I just want to say that I think that, in a lot of review and conversations I've had, informal conversations I've had with people from the state all the way through, I do not believe that there is any financial impropriety here. I think that our staff, first of all, I want to just say I think that CLC and CVEC are very good organizations. I think that they're working towards goals that they feel are in the interest of the region, and they're doing very good work and very hard work to make these things happen. However, so I don't believe that there is this conflict of interest as far as a personal financial gain. But I think it's been recognized by this board, which is why we're doing an internal audit, just so that we can confirm where these are, that there is a structural problem. That we have a structural problem here. We have a management problem to ensure that there's transparency and oversight. And this is something that we are going to address. We have our own audit coming, a report coming to us. An assessment, excuse me. The assessment. And I think these are things that we will be addressing. But there are issues. And I think that, you touched upon it as far as structure, and those are not lost on us. So these things do not happen overnight. There are questions out there, and I think that they'll all be answered as this process goes forward.
Can I comment too? Because I think some of this goes back to our policy where you have to be careful when you dialogue, but I think some of it's common sense. And to address Mr. Rogers, no date was set by CVEC for the WIN forum or the relationship forum. They did agree to do that. They did appoint a committee to put together the pieces that are required for the forum. I think there was discussion about having a facilitator there, and I think that's probably the right approach. There was mention that we should wait until we have all the information regarding conflict of interest and all of this. However, no date was set. The committee, I believe, is Charlie, Kit Johnson from Town, John Cunningham, I believe, and one other, I'm not sure. I'm not on the committee. But also I would say that these questions that were presented to you aren't really your questions, they're CVEC's questions. So I think people, if they have an issue with what CVEC chose to do, then they should address those issues to CVEC. That's the board that can make the decision to change it or not change it, not you.
And that's really the reason why we asked CVEC to hold a public forum. They have the information. They are in the best position to respond to the questions. And they should. But I think it should be, the public forum is partially informational, but it's all also partially to hear from people in the community and have them express their concerns and be prepared to respond to them. And I'm hoping that that's what that public forum will achieve. But I think planning it is key. You can't just bring people in and say, what are your concerns? You have to really be prepared to do that. And so it does take a little bit of time, not a lot of time, and they shouldn't delay it very long. They should move on it and hold it as quickly as they can.
And I think that this, as part of the discussion, CVEC recognizes that there's some urgency to it as well.
This is a clip that I found in a magazine that I think probably applies to this.
Where'd you get this?
Yeah, in The Economist this week.
Oh, that's good.
Answer?
Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you. It says, how to realize leadership potential.
Recognize an organizational problem, call for help, address the issue, and apply a resolution.
Easier
So I
said than done,
hope
but
that-
What stage are we
it's
at?
a good program. We're still,
I think we're at
stage
calling for
one.
help.
Yeah, calling for help.
Public comment time is over, so I want to go back to our agenda, vegetation management update. Paul, Ms. Wiki, and Patty Daly.
Thank you. We're here to give you an update. I think there was an hour allocated, but it won't take that long. The mapping project that we did last year had a few some outstanding residences. Just to back up and review, the Head Start plan that we had, vegetation management issues, was a 4-point plan. It dealt with mapping, monitoring, and aggregation study, and education and outreach piece. And so the mapping is what we spent a lot of time on last year, and it was profiled on Bill's show, and you've seen that presentation here. And so we've had an opportunity to sort of complete that as best we can. So we feel pretty good about the maps that would be used to manage rights of way at this point. The second piece is monitoring, and we had some initial discussions last year with the Commissioner of the Department of Agricultural Resources. Commissioner Lyons was in that, and there was a suggestion that DAR and perhaps some funding from NSTAR would help us engage in a monitoring program to monitor wells to get a baseline. We have identified potential locations for those wells, but we have to go back to DAR and see that if they have the resources in order to fund that going forward, or else we'll have to look for the resources from another source. They wanted us to wait until the end of the budget cycle. I expect that conference report will be out today or tomorrow. And so it would be appropriate to go back and have that discussion with Commissioner Soares, and I believe Commissioner Lyons has offered to sit in on that piece of it. So that's the second monitoring piece. The piece that's going to require the most heavy lifting and add the most value locally is this aggregation piece, to look at overall fertilizer and pesticide use on the Cape in order to come up with some regional quantities and a regional reduction strategy across the board that might be incorporated into the regional policy plan. We've scoped that at about a $50,000 cost, and we have accumulated about 15 so far, so we still need about 35 out there. APCC has cooperated. They've given us their Whitlock internship. We've applied for AmeriCorps. We've got some in-kind availability in there, and we're still chasing some private grants to help us with that. But there's a $35,000 need in order for us to move forward with the kind of study that we want to do. But we still have 6 months, seems to be more than enough time to get this study done. So we have some time. We hope to be back with a sooner report subsequent to the budget on where that 35 might come from. But just at this point, to skip to the final piece, which is education and outreach, we feel like we'd like to put together a committee of citizens to sort of help us with that. We think that process would be informed by having this aggregation study, or at least a draft of it available, and some of the information from it available to the Education Outreach Committee. So we're probably not going to put that together until September timeframe. But maybe Patty's here, and she's spent more time on the specific scope of the aggregation study, so maybe she can go through some of that.
Sure. I can hand you a draft. It's not quite ready yet. Paul mentioned we put in a request for AmeriCorps assistance as well, and haven't heard back on that yet. So I can be copied. So the idea is really a four-task project. We would like to get this done by the end of this fiscal year. The APCC intern would do a little... Yes.
This fiscal year? That ends in 2 weeks.
I'm sorry.
She means this
12.
calendar year?
Okay, all right.
This calendar year. So the APCC intern would conduct a literature review. We need the bulk of the money to hire an outside consultant to really track down records of the types of herbicides and fertilizers that are applied by user group, residential, commercial, utilities, and so on. There's a GIS component. We'll take that information back into our GIS and give it a geospatial layer, so we'll understand where these items are being loaded onto the soil and how close they are to receptors, natural resources. And then finally, a project report that the consultant would put together. And as Paul mentioned, I think this will result in best management practices for specific user groups, and potentially a region-wide goal that's adopted into the RPP for reductions.
My hope is that what this will do is set up a potential metric where we can measure over time the decrease of the use of these kinds of materials on the Cape.
So when you say funding 35, match 15, so you already have the 15?
Yeah.
We've got the 15, yes. And there may be more. We're still
Yeah, I
working
think
on
there will
that.
be
So,
more.
yeah.
So, but there's,
That's not including AmeriCorps yet.
Is this from Don Kernan's people, the PCC?
APCC is one of the partners.
Because he approached me offline to talk about the loss of John, is it, what's that conservation law, not conservation law, the federal, there's so
Right.
many of these there.
The wetlands restoration.
Right, that's it, yeah, because they were trying to look at some, let's say some strategies to offset that.
Yeah.
And I'm supposed to see him Friday to talk about some, some of the things that that he's interested in as far as going forward. I'm glad to have this in hand, as I go down there to talk to him. But there seems to be a whole package of this stuff that we had a lot of support before, which seems to have evaporated, no pun intended.
You mean the federal money?
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
restored.
Some of it was restored,
Yeah,
but not
some-
all of it.
yeah.
It leaves a significant hole in that big $20 million figure that they had out there. We are currently looking at a $100,000 wetlands restoration grant at the commission. So we're working with APC to try to build back that capacity. But this is a little, it may have some overlap, but it's a little bit different for what we need to do here. But I think closing the gap on that $35,000 is doable.
Go
I
ahead.
would like to make a motion that we consider giving this, that we grant this 35,000. This is a study that needs to be done. We're, a little bit behind the clock, not totally, but, time is ticking. We need to have this study in hand, especially going through our next, going into 2012 and maybe negotiating where NSTAR is and how they will proceed. And I would like to put a motion forward that we grant this $35,000 to conduct this study.
You want to make a process comment, process-wise?
Well, I'd second it for discussion purposes
Right.
only,
Right,
because
and that's
I'm not
fine.
clear about the
That's
source.
why I made the motion.
And
Yeah, you'd have to find the money first.
we'd have to
Right.
find the money to do it.
Yeah, well, we have, and that's part of the process. So what I would suggest is we're performing year-end right now. Typically, when we do year-end, we put aside the statutory reserve amount, it's about $250,000, a little bit more than that. It's 10% of the county tax assessment amount. We can put that aside. So that would be a potential source. But what I would suggest we do is I put together the supplemental budget request for your meeting on July 6th, since this is a 2012 budget request. And you guys can sign it then if you wish and submit it to the assembly at that point in time.
Well, and again, since we're in discussion now, it would seem useful that instead of voting to approve this now, that we wait until we find out what kind of funds we have in hand, because it might be, so that if we do have an intention to go forward on July 6th.
That's exactly what Mark was suggesting.
Yeah.
But wait until we get to that point of looking at the end of year.
Yeah, for
Situation.
this, for end
And
of
then see what
2011.
yes, for 2011, and then just wait until July, early July.
Maybe
we look at
Bill
the
is
supplemental
suggesting
budget.
that Paul's saying,
Right.
well, maybe some more grant money will be out
Yes,
there.
and that's true.
That's
And
fine,
then
I think, you
and
know,
maybe we could do part of it, or start it, get it rolling until some grant money might come forth, and we won't have to spend all of it, $35,000.
Yeah, I mean, it would be great. I mean, if it were available at 35 on the county level, it would give us, we would allow, instead of spending the resources tracking down the money, we could start with the process. I think we've already got some in the pipe, so if more comes in, we can work that out later.
Right.
I'd also like to get some input from some of the, we have other resources within the county, at our health department, for example, and I'd like to, to have some opinion from George Whitefilter as to whether or not there's any other activity that's going on
I
that's
think
related to this.
George and Bill
Bill
will
Clark,
both be
Yeah,
essential.
and
Yeah.
maybe we could have another discussion about this, because I happened to be talking to the wastewater group
Yeah.
from Falmouth the other night, and there was a member of the Board of Health there, and the Board of Health is considering banning
Yeah.
all pesticides other than organic.
Right.
Now, and I don't know what the benefit of that is, and we need George to participate in that, and I'm sure there are people like Sue and in the community that might have some say about, or
That's-
have some
that's the
ideas
process.
about whether it works or doesn't work.
In the first 6 months of the next fiscal year, what we'd like to do is take that first 3 months to work on this aggregation study to get more, and to build a committee around that. And then be able to report out to a citizens committee around education outreach, so that we can collect the data, analyze the data, think critically about how it might fit into the regional policy plan, and then also implement an education outreach strategy around it in a comprehensive regional approach.
So if I may, do I take back my motion as
No,
far
I think
as?
that we
No,
could
it was
table
just
it.
for
What I would like to
discussion.
do.
We could table it for a discussion at a future time, because one of the issues here is that although you've made the motion, and it was appropriate because it is an agenda item, I think that we need to have these other inputs before we go forward.
So I
we could-
request that-
we could
No, I think
postpone
what
it
you
to a
can
date
do
certain.
is amend your motion, that we look at our funding options
Yes.
of $35,000 from county resources, and that we take it up again in
In
July.
the next meeting, I would like to be able to have a report on that, Mark, on July 6th, I guess it would be.
Would you be
and-
ready to do that?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and then we can proceed from there. Is that soon enough? I mean, July 6th? Is
And I'll
that-
contact
And I think that
Georgia.
this is an important part. If we could get this study going, all of the other, because we still have to get monies for the monitoring program. I mean, there's a lot of different components to being able to really see the
Yeah,
picture that
the
we're
big open
doing.
question on all this has been the state budget, so that should be
Right.
over this weekend. Everyone will know what reversions they have at the end of this fiscal year, and we'll be able to find something.
So I want to second the amended motion,
All right.
which asks Mark to take up the review of fiscal 11 and the review of the supplemental for fiscal 12, and then we have a discussion as to see
Okay, so the
what
motion would be-
resources we might have to be able to fund that 35,000.
So we're not voting on the motion at
Yeah,
this
we are.
time?
We're voting on
Yeah,
the
you're
amended
directing me to
motion
do an
direct it.
analysis of if there's any money back.
Right.
Yeah. So now
That's
we
fine.
need
All
a
right, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I have one other thing to add to this.
Well, thank you for
You're welcome.
motioning Mark to shake the piggy bank.
I'd like to add,
Directing me to find some money.
I'm
Right.
glad to see that this is coming forward because there are 6 months left in the moratorium.
Right.
And it's my personal opinion that we need to provide some persistent and continuing look at what's going on. I did have, Laura Kelly
Yeah.
and Maxine Wolfset on my program on Monday. And they, of course, are also interested in looking at this and provided, I think Maxine Wolfset from Mashpee has made a video. So I incorporated that video into that
Yes.
program. And I wonder if you have any interest in putting that, or incorporating that as part of the overview on.
I've had several conversations with Laura, and we anticipate that when we get into reviewing the aggregation study, and especially the education outreach piece, that Laura, Green Cape, and a lot of the information that's out there will be part of that. And I would also like to say, it's not that things aren't happening. I mean, we continue to have fairly regular discussions with NSTAR on this issue, especially as it relates to trying to find a pilot area for goats, so that we can get some of these alternative strategies in place and see how they work here on the Cape. And so
That would segue into an interesting discussion, since we would probably have brought it up during Commission's reports. Perhaps now is the opportunity to introduce the adventures in animal husbandry that we enjoyed last Friday. And I would let Sheila sort of introduce that, since
Yes.
she was the one that was kind enough to set it up.
Well, we were, I don't believe I set it up. I was invited, and I think several other people were as well. But as Cape Cod Commission knows, through Patty, we've had these discussions about goats managing the rights of way, and Patty took the lead on negotiating that aspect with NSTAR, and they are favorable to it. Martha Heavener from the Cape Cod Commission is now scoping out the appropriate areas on the power lines. And in doing this, of course, nothing is as easy as it sounds, because we have all kinds of government regulations and oversight. So Wellfleet was more than willing to be the test ground for this. But of course, there's lots of broom, crowberry growing there, which is an endangered species, and we don't want the goats eating all of those things. But there, Martha seems to have identified a section in Yarmouth that would actually be great, because we only have one person who could be looked at as a goat herder on Cape Cod, and she's here in Barnstable, so that would be an easy transport, easier than going to Wellfleet, number one. Number two, all of these details probably wouldn't be hammered out until the fall, which is known to be the best time to have animals grazing and taking, eating all your vegetation up and that sort of thing. So we are pursuing it. We did go on a goat walk. Bill was there along with.
Got your goat, didn't I?
Yeah, it was actually they were delightful.
That's what I was thinking.
And very, very friendly, and even the turkeys, who were suspicious of us wanted to walk along and guide us through our way. But so it was a fun walk, I have to say. And but it is amazing what they can do in a couple of days. I mean, they can really clear a lot of land, and it makes me think that we should all own a goat. Anybody who has more than.
And by the way, people can go see this for themselves,
Yeah,
because it's at the Audubon
Right.
site in Comaquid, and I would recommend you go down there, because I had been down there before
I
for
have
picnics
too,
and
yeah.
so forth. It's a beautiful site, and you can see for yourself what the goats are doing as far as clearing the land. And, and one of the points is that you cannot use chemistry in conjunction with, with animal mechanical clearance, because the chemistry would poison the goats.
Exactly.
So there has to be there has to be an interval, and right now that interval exists because of the, the providential moratoriums that, that have happened. So this might be the best opportunity to see if it really works.
And of course, going on, just if I can just add to this, Jennifer, who is the goat herder nearby, down on Bone Hill, mentioned that Tim Fryery is the expert on growing this low vegetation that is really what is desired by NSTAR and by us to grow underneath the power lines. So if this all works out well, I can see us creating our own vegetation management plan and working it out with NSTAR, that we do we somehow encourage that growth, and it come through, the efforts of the county, and we even have pasturing areas so that we could get more goats.
Right? But in any case, Tim Fryery, for people who don't know, is the tenant farmer on the county farm. And he has been he was recognized that day as being someone who was at the forefront of best practices with regard to organic organic farming here on the Cape.
Right.
And I thought that it was wonderful that the person that we had selected to run the farm had been identified by other people, in that business of being concerned about organics to support that. So, it was like that was very good.
Right.
But
Jim is also a goat whisperer.
Well, no, actually, I was more concerned about the turkeys sort of congregating with me like that. That was a sign or something.
Turkeys were wild,
yeah.
So I mean, this could all work out very well in the future as we go forward. But I would really like to see this occur, this pilot program, and I think it would be a great example of what an alternative method could be, and it would encourage jobs, and we have one right here, so that would keep job growth regional.
The key thing that I think that was brought up by Jennifer is you just can't throw the goats out there.
No.
It needs supervision and husbandry.
Exactly.
The other positive thing as far as what happened at that day is we had members of the legislative delegation. We had Senator Wolf,
right.
Sarah Peake, Cleon Turner, who and I think Sue Roback came as well.
Yes, Sue Roback.
Who were all there, giving, demonstrating, their interest as stated before when they've been supporting it. And I'm very encouraged to hear about what's happening in Falmouth as far as them looking at it, because only the town of Barnstable, the city of Barnstable, has announced that they were looking at not using herbicides on their town-owned property. I don't know if I believe that has taken place because was it John Plum announced it at the State of the City?
Yeah, well, they had been saying it last year when it wasn't actually true. So
right.
we doubled their efforts now, and I believe that they are. And the town of Barnstable has one of the best organic approaches to golf courses and some of the other. So they have been a leader in that, but I think that they have now committed to go pesticide-free as much as they can.
Right.
And
So,
they're not the only town.
Well, I'd like to hear more about the other towns that are actually doing that, because while we have gotten what I'd call universal comment from the towns with regard to saying that they are encouraging the elimination of it by NSTAR, part of it would be to see some evidence that they actually are following through on their own to look at this.
The towns have a lot of licensed pesticide applicators on staff. So, we want to make sure, but I think that's part of the comprehensive approach here, is to get everybody on the same page, raise the level of awareness. I think that has already happened over the 2 years. I think Green Cape should take a lot of responsibility for that. That's a tremendous victory, and my hope is that this comprehensive plan will get us to a point where not only do we not have any additional application of pesticides on the Cape, we start to reduce the pesticides that are already being applied on a regular basis.
And I think the attrition that's indicated the best practices in the 4-point plan, which people can go to the Cape Cod Commission webpage and access that and see it in all. And Scott Michaud did a great job as far as doing the voiceover on that. So there is an opportunity to review that at the public's leisure. And I would recommend that for those who want to know more, and I'm concerned about it, that there's an opportunity to do just that.
I'm going to request that we put a link to our, because when you open up the barnstable.county.org site, it talks about vegetation management. So if that isn't linked there, I would request that we have a link either to that film or have it readily accessible
Okay.
on ours as well. So if people are trying to find it, they can find it in either.
I think that's a good idea. The only thing, in the meantime, people can go to our webpage, go down to the Cape Cod Commission, and then go through it. And I know that that becomes tedious for some, but
Yeah.
there is access. We'll try to do better.
Right.
Okay, did you have anything else on this?
No, just because I think it's important to get back in front of the commissioners on a regular basis with a specific topic to discuss. My suggestion next time is, I think we're going to have our new website up in July, and we're also moving forward on project management software. And so we've been sort of a beta test for the county generally. So maybe in July we'd like to come back and talk about how we're going to use that going forward. It might be good to bring in John Morrison, Peter Paulson, and have that discussion.
Good idea.
See how we can apply it all.
Yeah,
Always
on all-
just to
on
give
the
you
whole
a sense
county.
of what we've been through over the last
Okay,
12
so
months.
it's
It might
very
be-
appropriate because we're
we're
looking at a
working on a
schedule.
schedule.
We're working on a schedule right now, so we could set
It might be
that
like
up.
August 3rd.
That would be, we'll be further along, so that
So August 3rd.
I was thinking that maybe we need to have a joint meeting with you and Dave Willett from the EDC. The EDC held back some of their license plate funds
Yes.
to help towns prepare for Open Cape.
Yep.
And that's only like a year and a half away, which is not a long time. But I think that it would be good if we had a discussion about how that would be managed, and how the towns could be included or use some of those funds, maybe developing a template or a model for what the towns could expect in terms of this pre-planning. Because I'm thinking too, people still think about, affordable housing. Everything is all housing, and I mean housing in terms of homes, as opposed to housing in terms of apartments. And they're not really thinking about, no one that I can see is thinking about the impacts of Open Cape in terms of what it would do for the job market on the Cape, and to plan for that, and the effect on housing, and what kind of housing would be needed.
I would just say that the five partners from the Smarter Cape Summit, being the Commission, the EDC, Open Cape, Cape Tech Collaborative, and
IBM.
no,
Oh, I'm sorry.
the Chamber of Commerce.
Oh, yeah.
We've continued to meet, so we've actually had 2 meetings subsequent to that. So that would be a good group to get back in front of you to make a report. And there's also $9.7 million in a regionalization fund that the governor put in. So when we were in Harwich, Jim Merriman talked about maybe doing a regional grant towards that to support Open Cape. The governor has signaled to Dan Gallagher that there is planning money available for that kind of implementation. And so the EDC could be a partner of that. But if you can put all of that together, you could really come up with a bundle that could help us help towns get to the next step on what's going forward. And there's other sort of best management strategies too, like the town of Barnstable has been a leader on this and using some of their Comcast money to create an INET, which will put them on the forefront. And that was part of the discussion we had in Falmouth last week, is how do you use your Comcast money? Can you use it to sort of expand and do some of this last mile stuff to public buildings? So there's a lot of things that we could do out there. So however you want that, it might be better for you all to come to a meeting that we scope rather than doing it here. The other thing I will say is the group has agreed yesterday to do something in September, so to not wait another year for the summer. So in September, we're looking for a place to do an update. And what we would like to address it's going to be a half-day meeting in September, probably the Smarter Cape partners. And what we're going to come up with is sort of the matrix of measurements of things that we want to accomplish before we get to the next spring. So that, it's important to me that the Smarter Cape Summit not just be a self-congratulatory annual meeting, that we are actually moving towards things. And there are, in this bleak economy, a lot of resources out there available. And I think given the governor's comments and some of the other, Secretary Bilecki's comments at the Smarter Cape Summit, they recognize that it's the truly regional aspect of the Open Cape project that makes it a leader. And so we want to continue to push that forward, and that's why I think that an application to support that would be viewed favorably by the administration.
I would point out that at the the workforce meeting yesterday in Sturbridge, one of the things that Secretary Goldstein mentioned was the listening tours where it was open-ended, and I think this would be an opportunity to, let's say, to go on record at least as to our interest in supporting this as an opportunity both for economic development and job creation.
Yeah.
And part of this, you mentioned the Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber of Commerce meeting spoke about the importance of water quality as being an essential piece of that. So I had sent a note to Andrew Godley, and I think I copied you on it, saying that this is something that I hope that they connect with us to, let's say, to make sure that we're part of all these discussions.
No, and this is part of the Commission's effort is to try to take advantage of this sort of confluence of events. And Open Cape is going to give us increased capacity. That's why we've been working with IBM on a Smarter Cape initiative in the water quality space. And we've articulated that to the Chamber a number of times. The Chamber's been a tremendous partner on this issue. And then last night I was in Yarmouth, and Yarmouth has an interest in using Open Cape to promote e-permitting. And they've actually done a lot of work on it, and they've been a leader on it. And so, as we move forward with IBM to establish the Strategic Information Office and design the information architecture, there are a number of different components where we're focusing on the water quality because it's our most pressing issue right now. Electronic permitting, assessing, other things can get plugged in along the way if we design it right. So that's what we're trying to do.
May I just make it, and it's not all about what we're going to do with Open Cape, but since it's come up, I know that Open Cape is now finalizing their contracts as far as the renovation of the building up there and that sort of thing. So I would request that we contact them and have them come before us and talk about those plans before they've been implemented, so that we can see what's going to go on in our building and see how the structure is going to be, and if we approve of that, and if there's any ideas of,
It
conference.
would be great if you could get them to build a new meeting space.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, we do need a new meeting space.
Well, actually, we'll have new meeting space up on the hill.
Well,
We're
if
going to
you-
use that conference area.
Dan Gilligan just sent me an email saying that Open Cape has now issued 2 RFPs relating to the future of Dan Gallagher. Open Cape Regional Co-location Center, first RFP would be for general resident renovation, and second will be issued yesterday and is for the construction of the co-location data center on the ground floor. So there is activity that
Right, and they are on a timeline, so we have to, I don't want to hold them up just because we want to see it, so I want to be able to have that in a timely fashion so that we're not
Do we
screwing
need
up.
to do anything as far as administratively to make sure? that-
No, I can get it on the agenda.
Okay, that would be great.
Move it for sooner rather than later.
Right.
Did you have anything else for us? Yes.
No, I
Oh,
think
Sue.
Sue and John are here, and I'm
Oh,
sure
that's
they're here
right.
for good reason.
And welcome
And they've been wanting to
Sue
say
Phelan
something.
from Green Cape. And well, who's going to speak?
I just wanted to ask, relative to the goat walk that Green Cape organized on behalf of Jennifer, so that you could see the power of the animals. When we were not clear, something was mentioned about funding the goats, and we're not clear where that funding might potentially come from, or if it's purely a pilot project. She's still available. She could actually run the goats through December, but of course, the longer she runs them, like the sooner you start, the more they can accomplish. They can accomplish quite a bit, but they would possibly not be able to do the entire Cape before December unless they started, really soon. And I'm not aware, I spoke with her this morning, I'm not aware that, there's been any proposal to her or if the proposal's going elsewhere for the
We're
pilot.
just talking about the money right now.
At this point, NSTAR has agreed to look at a pilot project between now and when the snow falls, I guess. So we're working just to find the best spot for the pilot at this point.
Just so I'll be clear, are you saying that NSTAR will fund this?
That's one.
We're still negotiating the entire project with them, so
Yeah, the first thing that
we'll
we-
be happy to talk to them about that.
This hasn't been without some resistance. So the first thing we have to do is get a geographic location that they've okayed that we can use this pilot program. It doesn't make sense to go out and get money if they're not going to let us do it. And so that's what we've been spending most of our time on.
Where does the money come from?
Well,
That's going to be,
there are
Yeah, to be
potential
determined.
sources, but there isn't anything for attribution at this point.
Right.
Okay, just so we're clear about that, and I think that's the answer that you wanted, so whether or not we identified a resource that we were going to attack as far as getting the money.
Right, and I just did want to let you know that she is available, you know, they do work in the winter.
But however, I would remind you that as impressed as all of us were with regard to her proficiency, if it is over a certain amount of money, it would indeed have to go out for public bid.
right.
Where do the goats go at night? Do they just
Yeah,
stay there all the
They're
time?
just like lean-to type
No,
of
I
affairs.
think it's
They're not completely
an
closed.
interesting idea, certainly, but I just wonder if they have to be transported
You-
each day or they stay there.
That is one of my questions. What are the logistics of doing such a program? I mean, even a pilot. So if it's a pilot program, it might be that way. Or I mean, these are things that have to be worked out with the herder. And I know that Martha has been in touch. She was talking to Jennifer before our goat walk. And I think that they were really able to come to an understanding as they were talking at the end of that conversation. So they're going to be in communication about timelines, and so I think there is that communication going on with Jennifer.
She said no one had a...
Well, it was Friday, so I mean,
Right.
they're trying to
I
find
realize that.
certain things out
Once-
before.
Once we get the okay from NSTAR, we can scope it, and then we can go out and try to find somebody to do it. But I mean, I think it's exciting. My previous knowledge of working goats was, you know, totaled up in Silent Night.
Oh, okay, so you weren't one of the three magi?
No.
Right. I just want to know if we're going to have revelations of
Well, it's good economic development. We're going to create a new category for employment, shepherd.
Right.
We're excited about it though. And to have NSTAR go to the point of letting us do this is a major victory.
yes, it
I
is.
think, right.
Good, and again, it points out that the Barnstable County is the only entity that has continuing skin in this game.
Yep.
And goats are part of this, I mean, even though they're not specified in here.
Right.
The
Well,
pilot
then-
They're
project,
part of the reduction strategy.
part of the reduction strategy.
Holistically, we're looking at all
Right.
options.
Right.
And Paul, you didn't make it to the walk, but it was very clear that, from Jen, that should they start using the herbicides again, this
You
option
can't put the
was
goats
off.
out.
Yeah.
No, we understand
And
that.
she stressed that other herders would also feel the same way, because
No.
the goats would be kind of useless afterwards for milk or for meat or type of thing.
So there's a huge opportunity. The window's open.
Yeah.
You know, we want to be able to close the deal.
Oh, good. Okay, did you have anything else for us on this
No.
topic?
Look at that, you killed an animal.
I did. Huh?
Wow.
It always goes that way.
What'd you say?
Sorry.
It was almost an hour. It was a couple of
Oh,
hours.
okay.
I didn't think it was going to be that long.
It's just a draft, but it can be...
Yeah.
How about that other?
You might want to give them.
Yeah, one that I can help?
Have fun.
There.
Actually, I want to make sure Seabrook's...
Would you, bring us over
Yeah.
Are you gonna post it?
I just was thinking again, you said that that legislation's all, that when that Brenda brought before us, that it looks like it was going forward, that she wanted us to support.
it wasn't going to go in conference because ultimately accepted.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
so that was all very good news.
And what I gave Mark to send on to Brenda was Debbie, the other component. Yeah.
Oh, yes, I saw that,
Saying
yes,
that the different
yes.
legislation that was going forward.
And now
that
there's
we're
a
really
new type
supporting.
of wine.
It's
freezing.
Well, it's baby
I'm glad I brought my,
Baby,
should we turn that down a little?
There you go.
Right.
Okay, should we take a recess for a couple of minutes before we start on the next session?
Some of the members are a little cold during the...
You can turn it down or off.
Public,
It's just-
I don't want
it
to
was
turn it
very
off because I'll
humid in here.
I'm also having my internal heat combustion. But yeah, I feel like one of those X-Men characters that can burst into flame. But
Thanks.
Talk about that.
yes, now that I'm on camera, I really can know.
Should we could use this time to vote on the,
We can't vote, we're in recess.
No,
we didn't go to
he didn't actually.
Oh,
I
you
was
did
glad
it
about
there.
that.
On the side of
I
action,
didn't go.
right?
I was just wondering whether or not we should vote on the needs action at this time.
Can I see
Anybody?
the needs action then? I haven't seen everything. You haven't?
I did read it on the,
Do you have any questions with regard to it?
Well, let me just go back to where I was.
I would note that number 17, at least on mine, vote to award the bid for the installation of water mains to JW do this. That's part of the Open Cape piece as
Yeah, I
well.
figured
We're
that.
tying
Yeah.
in all the,
right, because we knew there were water main
Right.
issues
Yeah.
with that project, right?
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, I'm fine with those.
Okay. I'll move that we approve the summary of items.
I second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed and abstention? There's a vote.
thank you.
Do you have anything for us?
I have my weekly report, if you wish. So here are copies for you. 1, 2, 3. First, I just wanted to note that we are up and running with our regional building inspector with Town of Wellfleet. You guys are taking him,
Yep,
her actually.
yes.
Sabelle, I believe is her name. You're taking her 2 days a week,
Mhm.
and the commission's for the 3rd week. So we started that in May, so that's good. So we're moving that along.
Have we informed the other towns now that we have that available to them if they are now facing renewing contracts or?
They are aware of it because it's come up at the town administrator's monthly meeting that Maggie and I attend. But right now, we hired her on a part-time basis because we were trying to avoid the whole benefits issue. So if we have more interest, then we can look at expanding her time and have a lot to deal
Having her
with
as a
how to pay for the
permanent
benefits
employee.
piece. Yeah, because
Right.
once you hit a certain number of hours, you trip the benefits thing,
Right.
both retirement and health
So if
insurance.
there are people coming forward saying we're interested, then we
Yeah,
can
then we can
negotiate and look at the
exactly.
cost
Yeah.
effectiveness, okay.
So yeah, it's a foot in the door, so to speak, on these types.
Yeah,
of
I
things.
think it's a very good start.
Yeah, Paul.
with
Yeah, I
some
have
sort
to
of
give a
region.
lot of credit to Paul Seeloff.
Paul
Did a terrific
Seeloff
job.
is happy to give away a lot of
He's
things.
looking to farm out everything.
Yeah, he really is, and I think he gets it in many ways, where
Yeah,
there is
he's good.
there is a benefit overall for everyone.
Does he come regularly or most often to the managers meeting?
Yeah, Paul's one of the ones that I would
So
say
he
attends
tops this up
usually.
with that
Yeah,
group?
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's good.
Yeah, he's definitely in favor of regional approaches. There's no
Right.
question
Mhm.
about that.
Well, he
We-
worked with Albany, he was with the count in
Right.
New York,
Yeah.
so he's very comfortable with this and
With
doesn't
county-
feel
county
threatened or.
government.
Yeah.
Interesting, the New York Times had a story, I forget when, very recently, about towns across the country. You know, in the Midwest and out in the West, there are a lot of towns that have 5,000 to 6,000 people, you know, like some of our small towns.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And they're just looking at the cost, or less, or 2,000 people. And they're just looking at the cost of just what they have to put together to manage these little small communities. And they're thinking about combining towns
Right.
and regionalizing them.
Right.
There's a
So,
lot of
I
that.
mean, it's all
Yeah.
over the country, it's not just here.
The counties historically, as we go out of this area, were formed first, and the communities were sort of inserted inside of the county, so that there's so-called unincorporated areas. And now that, and I've heard this at the legislative conference for the National Association of County Officials, where they were talking about more questions and more resources were being asked from the county in order to take up more of a regional role, where they were in good times, they were withdrawing and trying to become more independent. As money has become tight, they're looking back towards the existing umbrella of regional government that exists in the in the areas as you leave Massachusetts and New England, where the county can provide a regional focus. There is still the issues of sovereignty and control and those things, but there's more of an acceptance of it as they see that there are areas that are legitimately needed to stay within the town, but there are other parts that do not affect their governing authority, but yet meet their service responsibility by doing this. And I'm hoping that we see a little bit more of that here.
And even the towns that are in western Massachusetts that are trying to do this in the Franklin Cog, they're really just they're really sort of like an administrative business that goes around, so we can do your administrative services for you, where we actually have a government in place that can leverage money, go for bigger grant money. So there's a benefit to what we have here, and that's why we have to make sure that we protect it and have it structured so that it can be effective for the towns in that way.
I also wanted to let you know that the Registry of Deeds settled their union contract negotiations. They did a 1 year, which provides the same terms and conditions that other county non-union personnel get for 2012. So I thought that was good news. Also, the RDO AmeriCorps graduation ceremony will be held Thursday, July 28th, from 9 to 11:30, and this year it's going to be at the Cape Cod Art Museum in Dennis. So
Very
put that
nice.
in your calendars. And finally, next week on Wednesday, Cape Cod Commission and Cape Cod Regional Transportation Authority are partnering to coordinate activities for Smart Transportation Week. Smart Transportation Week is next week. And this year they're doing, each day has a theme. Monday is Aviation Day, Tuesday is Bus Day, Wednesday is Ferry and Bike Day, Thursday is Rail Day, and Friday is Transit Day. So, and as you recall, they'll have the rally out back of the Cape Cod Commission parking lot from noon to 1 o'clock. And if you want more information on Smart Transportation Week, you can go to www.gocapecod.org. I just wanted to mention, kind of we were talking about, so the Cape Cod Commission update and project manager software demo, we can put them on the agenda, I think, for around August 3rd or so. Paul did mention that maybe you would go to them for this EDC, Open Cape Smart Cape meeting. That's possible. I do have EDC on the list because I assume they'll want to bring their budget for the license plate funds to you guys. So they're on the list for a July or August meeting anyways.
I was good with the draft piece that you were kind enough to send me with regard to proposed schedules. And I think at this point it would be useful to share it with both.
Yeah,
you.
certainly.
He'll send that
I
along
have
to you.
to modify
And
it
then
for a little
things about
bit.
Exactly.
And actually, I'm trying to get Dan maybe
Yes.
for tomorrow, for next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday, okay.
Because I didn't know anything for next Wednesday.
Is that good for you?
Mhm.
Okay.
So,
Yes,
And then
sir.
we have this next Wednesday at noon, too.
yeah,
I was there
exactly.
last year, I remember.
Did you get your T-shirt?
Yes. Right.
Yeah, Lev didn't hit me up for any money this year yet, so maybe it's because he hasn't seen me.
If we decide to do this meeting over there, with the group, that would be considered a formal meeting, and then we would have that taped and...
No, it wouldn't necessarily, well, it could be. If we wanted
And I
to
think it would be very
deliberate on
informational
issues,
if-
it might be better if
Yeah, it's
we
sort of-
posted it as a meeting for
Exactly,
us.
that's
Right.
right.
So that if there were suggestions made or
And it's also
decisions
open
that
to the
had to be
public. The
made.
public can hear
we
what
could,
your work
Want
is
to do
going
this
on.
at the Cape Cod Commission? Is that what you're...
Well, that's what he was just proposing, to put it,
Some
to
other
bring
way.
it somewhere
Yeah.
where all of these different
Elements.
partners in this
They usually
effort.
do this outside, though, don't they?
No,
No.
Sheila is talking about the
the-
Cape Cod Commission,
The
the
partners,
EDC,
the
Smart
partners
Cape,
In the
Open
summit.
Cape.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they were just
Okay.
talking, they wanted to come to us and tell us that they're going to do an update in September, but also the things that they're discussing
Right.
with Open Cape, with the money, with the EDC
Right.
money and that sort of
Which
thing.
brings up 2 points. They meet at a different time,
Right,
okay? Would we want to have our meeting at
Who
that
meets at
time?
a different
The
time?
EDC.
EDC, yeah.
Oh, but this isn't an EDC meeting. This is a totally separate meeting that's going
It's
to
a-
include
yeah.
all the partners
Yeah.
from
Right.
this
Oh,
smarter.
And what time are they meeting?
He
Oh,
hasn't come up
he
with.
hasn't come up,
He
but we
hasn't come up
could-
with a time or a
Because-
Maybe we
place.
should make it a formal meeting.
Because we had talked about having an evening meeting on July 6th, for example.
Okay.
That had been mentioned.
Oh,
And
yeah.
if you recall, we wanted to have, we had some interest in meeting at a different time other than the morning. But regardless of whether or not we're meeting with these folks on July 6th,
No,
I'm suggesting that
they
No,
will
but
not be
you're
able
talking
to
about
pull
three
that
different
together
things,
on
right.
July 6th.
July 6th,
That
I'm
takes a
planning
lot
on
of
having
planning
Rob
to
and
pull that
Henri
together.
come to talk
Oh,
about
that's right. We have Rob and
Okay.
Henri.
Do we
county
want-
government.
do we want to have that at a late afternoon or early evening time?
Sure. fine with me.
because that might allow
How about
more
you?
people to participate.
Henri said I haven't heard back from Rob. Henri said he's fine in the evening, if that's what.
Okay, so
Okay.
would you like to set that up, let's
Yeah.
say at 6 o'clock, for example?
That is fine.
It's an assembly day, so that would probably work. You go to the assembly.
Your assembly,
then you
right.
come and have your evening
July
meeting.
6th.
July 6th.
6
That's
o'clock?
fine with me. And we could even have it over at the assembly, we can have our meeting anywhere if it's a
Unless they
larger
don't-
venue.
You could,
Then he
unless they
wouldn't
don't
have to
finish.
move.
Yeah, unless they don't finish.
You wouldn't
our-
have
If they don't finish, I've got a
And he wouldn't
problem.
have to be lugging it around.
If what?
If they don't finish and you start another meeting simultaneously,
Well, why
I've got a
don't-
problem.
It seems to me that since our anticipation and the reason that, that is part of our motivation is to allow for more people to show up, and that is a larger venue as far
Yeah.
as, as far as opening, why don't we plan to have it there?
Well, why don't we
I
just say
think that is fine.
6:30 instead of 6?
Okay, but over
And
there.
that way, they'll have to
Yeah,
be
you're
done,
almost
they'll be
always
done by
done by
6.
They're done by,
Yeah.
yeah, they're done by 5:30
Yeah.
usually.
But we're changing the location to over there, right?
Yes,
Okay, so,
I think that would be good.
okay.
And also on that, we will talk about the funding. You'll have a report on that as
Yes.
well on that day. Okay, I don't want to be
That-
forgotten
that's
because Henri
That's
and
2 weeks from now, not next week, July 20th.
That's July 6th, that's 2 weeks
2
from
weeks from
now.
today.
Yeah, frankly, what I'm gonna do is put together the supplemental for you
Okay.
guys. That's not gonna be an issue.
Okay.
It really is not.
All right.
So,
So,
6:30.
okay, so, all right, do we have any other, I guess it's time for us to go to the
wait.
next topic on our agenda if we're finished with this
So,
discussion.
so the assembly meets that day, so we could just, if we wanted to, go at 4,
Mhm.
and then we would meet at 6:30.
Well, I think that we've been talking about there can only be one that would actually sit up and
And
enjoy the, let's say, enjoy the back and forth with the assembly members.
Okay.
Because that would,
And then what
or
about-
not, because I believe that aren't they having a time dedicated to an important presentation?
On July 6th.
I don't know.
They are,
Yeah.
I think.
Okay. Now,
Now, what about the 29th?
what about the 29th? What do we have?
I'm trying to get
Don't we have
Dan,
something on
see
that?
if he
Oh,
can.
Dan
yeah,
Gallagher.
Dan
to
Gallagher,
talk
right.
about the renovations of the open cave.
So that would be another 10 a.m. or
So that
thereabouts,
we haven't
whatever
talked
he
about
could,
that.
wait, okay.
Yeah, that's what I would say, is suggest if he's available in the morning, but not in the afternoon, just do it when he's available,
Okay.
if he's available.
And then you'll give us an update on the time when we got to that.
Yep.
Okay, is there anything else that you want to include in next week's agenda while we're talking about this?
Not at the moment.
Okay. All right, well, we now are down to, let's see, it's after
Reports.
11:05. It's proposed executive session.
Well, we had about reports.
Oh,
Well,
I mean, we need to
well,
finish
wait,
our regular.
we have a decision to make. The decision is, do we go into executive session and then come back out, or do we go into executive session and stop? If we want to go into executive session and not come back out, we could finish the rest of these reports.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I know that this sounds, but in reading that, I did send an email to our attorney, just clarifying that this is grounds for executive session, because he did mention previously that, he made note, he had a comment about our last executive session.
We
And,
did get a report
this
from the
says-
attorney.
I did not
This
see,
says proposed executive session.
this is a proposed executive
Proposed,
session.
and for what purpose?
Okay, I have a comment from Jeff Bernstein. with regard to-
Well, Jeff Bernstein, if I may, is not our county attorney. I have no doubt in Jeff's,
Well, can we stay on the purpose of the
Yeah.
meeting? Because I'm not sure
well, I put out a
what the
question.
purpose is.
I put out a
Oh, is this
question.
you asked for the
I
meeting?
asked for,
Oh.
there was much discussion about the vote that went on in CVAC on the Barnstable solar project. I had a conversation with Jeff Bernstein and that we touched upon that vote. And so I was interested from that conversation, how did we vote? And I had some questions about what does this mean? My feeling is the vote has happened, it has been reported in the newspapers, it's been out there as something that's already occurred, so I wasn't sure why we had to have executive session if it's already been in the public.
Well, Bob Troy, I know you had asked Bob, and Bob was not aware of the circumstances surrounding that, so he asked Jeff, I believe, to give an opinion, and this is Jeff's opinion.
Well,
And that was
Jeff
generated
is
by-
not the county attorney, and I have no doubt in Jeff's capabilities or his expertise. But he is the attorney for CLC and CVEC, and I think that in these instances, we need a clarification in our interest from our attorney. So why Bob had to go and ask Mr. Bernstein just raises the question, does this feel beyond Bob's level of expertise? And if so, I would like it to be not necessarily the attorney representing the interests of the groups being discussed, but the interests of the county.
No, I think it's because he wasn't there. This discussion took place in executive session. The vote took place in executive session. All of the contract documents that we're talking about, and that's why we're talking we should be talking in executive session, haven't been finalized yet. And this explains here, there are a couple of outstanding.
Perhaps we should read this into the record, so we, at least we'd have this opinion, out there, because we're discussing whether or not we should go into executive session. See, and this is what Jeff Bernstein sent to us. While the fact of the award of AC to ACE.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm not even clear about what we want to talk about in executive session.
All I wanted to know is, how did we vote in that?
Oh,
and
how did
it
our
go?
member vote
And how did
in
our
the session?
member vote, and what does that mean for the overall strategy of CVEC? It was just a discussion. And my other question is, I can understand having all of those discussions as far as negotiations and these different documents. I'm not sure why the vote, I know that when we go into executive session and we discuss certain actions, we have to come out of executive session and then do the vote.
On certain matters.
On certain
It depends on
and
what we take up. In other words, there's a difference. Let's say you go into executive session to vote you go into executive session because you need to do that if you're negotiating a contract.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you're negotiating a contract with Mark. We sit down with Mark, we're negotiating his contract. We come out with terms, and we also come out with dollars. What would Mark's salary be as a result of this contract? At the end of the negotiations, we go into executive session. Doesn't have to be the same night or day. It can be the following week, and we say, we have agreed that Mark's salary will be X, and that we have to vote in executive session. You can't vote that. You have to vote that in open session because it's the finance. Now for them, they're discussing contracts that involve dollars, and they get information that may be privileged information. I don't know. I don't know exactly what you do. But when you end up with a contract that is agreed to by both parties, and then it has a dollar amount in that contract, you would have to vote that in open session when you get to that point. But it sounds, from reading this, that contract negotiations haven't been completed.
We're not.
So if they're not completed, then we really shouldn't discuss anything that they're discussing in executive session until they actually vote the contract. Now, if there are parts of the contract that you're questioning, I think then whichever one of us has an issue with it, we think that we have a right to speak on it. We can ask to go to their meeting, maybe, I don't know, if they let any one of us attend their meetings. We're not part of their deliberations. But see, I think, and then after, wait a minute, wait a second. Then after the meetings in executive session are over, there are minutes. And CVEC then has to review their minutes at a certain, periodically now, according to the Attorney General's regulations under the open meeting law, you have to review your minutes and you have to vote them and release them to the public. I know in towns now, what town boards of selectmen are doing, every month they review all their executive session minutes and say which ones can be released to the public, and they vote to release them. And you have to, because for a long time boards never did this. They had their executive sessions, they had their minutes, and they never bothered to go back and review them and release them. Every board is required to do that, CVEC included. So they would need to review all of their executive session minutes And those that have, where their contracts have been completed and all of that, they should be released to the public if it's determined to be appropriate to do that. So that's kind of where we are with this. So if there's an issue with a term of the contract and that is still being negotiated, then I don't think we should talk about it.
Talk about it at all or talk about it in executive session?
Well, what right do we have to talk about in an executive session? Are we allowed to discuss the contract?
I don't believe that, I believe that the issue, in my opinion,
Yeah.
the issue came up is that if we talked about it at all, we have to talk about it in executive session. I do not believe we have the right to talk about it in an open session because
It's still under negotiation.
Under negotiation because the date of July 14th is when it will be heard at the town of Barnstable, so that alone says that it's still in play.
So the question is, do we have sufficient reason, or we have a sufficient reason to go into executive session to discuss the terms of the contract that CVAC is discussing?
May I ask a
Sure,
couple of
and
questions?
if you're the one that
just
asked, you have
clarification.
to. Sure.
All right, I just wanted to know how the vote goes. All right, so, and it's been reported in the paper that the vote went that Barnstable not only was able to, procure this solar project, but also negotiated 100% of the rights. They're first come, first served. They have some control on this. Now, that is what's been reported in the newspapers.
The issue of the 10% to the CLC, that's correct. So the
Right.
CLC is not getting 10% of the benefit.
Yeah.
That's how the vote came out.
Right.
Correct.
So that's how the vote came out. And what was the balance on that vote? Can we discuss that? I mean, I was there.
I don't remember. I think it was whatever the count was to 1. And I was the one who was opposed.
Now, because in my conversation with Mr. Bernstein, he said several people were unhappy with that on the board. So I was just wondering who that may
On
be.
which board?
Or how, on the board of CVAC board.
Okay.
And so what is there has to be approved by the town of Barnstable still? What is going before
All these contract documents have none of the towns have yet approved them. So that's what we're waiting for. So that's, and I'd hate to jeopardize by saying something, those approvals.
I think we could talk about anything that's been public. Anything from there that has been public, we can talk about. If it hasn't been made public, then I don't think we
But
should.
is that, so that vote still
state?
no matter what comes out of these contract negotiations, is that going to affect that vote in any way, shape, or form? Could it?
That's the purpose of executive session.
Is that?
Well, that would be speculation on my part.
That would be speculation.
I
Okay.
couldn't say.
Well, I would vote against having executive session or even further and I would like to, in these types of instances, this is where it is good to have county council to guide us here in those instances. So I do think it would be worth our while to be educated as to how that process went on, how it took place. You are our representative. I'm glad you voted no. And because I understand I understand where the vote.
Have we decided that we are?
He's still in the middle.
Well, I'm just stating that if this is how we're going to go into executive session, I would rather have it clarified by our own attorney here that this is indeed grounds for executive session. I would table this until next week. And,
So you're moving to table?
I would table my motion to have this discussion, yeah. I mean, if we're not sure if it's executive
All
session.
right, so we'll put it on the table until next week.
And I would like to have our attorney here when we do, if we do have to go into executive session, I still would like him
If
here.
Bob's not available, is it okay if I just run this by him and make sure he's comfortable with it? Because I don't know if he's available.
Well, I mean, the fact of the matter is, we are somehow, whether it's through CLC or what, we have an interest in the outcome of that vote. And I think we need our own attorney for the county's interest, not the attorney for that necessarily is CLC and CVEC's attorney. So I request that Bob be available and to make himself available. He said if he had 7 days notice.
Just to be clear, you want him to be available when we discuss it. So Mark has raised the issue that on this notice, he may not be available next week. So do you want to make sure that he is available before we discuss it?
He wrote to me that if he had 7 days' notice, he could be available, and I think that this is 7 days. And if we contacted him here today, if he could make room in his schedule for Wednesday of next week, just to guide us through this, and also listen to the outcome, and to help us, what does this mean
Okay.
for anybody?
Now, is it your intention to do this in open or executive session?
If it's
with regard to
executive
discussion?
session material, I am happy to go into executive session, but I would like to have our attorney present.
I see. Okay, so are we all clear on what we're doing right now? Do you understand what you're doing, what we're doing?
Sure, I'll ask Bob if he's available to come.
Okay, so we'll now postpone this item and not take it up at this time.
I think, well, I agree that Sheila postpones it because we could be subject to a violation of the open meeting law if we take up something that's not really, that has been.
I don't want to discuss it in an
currently
open session if it's not, if
Okay.
it's
In
not appropriate, and I
negotiations
don't want to
with
go into
another body.
executive session if
Yeah.
it's not appropriate.
Right.
And I also want someone there that's going to be looking
Right.
after our legal interests as well as somebody else looking
I
after
hear
the
all
other.
those things.
Yeah.
I just
Okay,
want to be
that's
clear
all I
on what
wanted
our
to
next, what
Yeah.
we've agreed is what
Okay.
our next
Right,
step is.
yeah.
Okay,
I
so
mean, I think we need to always proceed with caution. and things like
absolutely.
that, and
I
that's a good
think that
suggestion.
Thank
if
you.
we did anything other than that, I think that we would be violating our responsibility and the oath that we took to uphold the laws of the Commonwealth with regard to these matters, so.
I'm very glad to hear you say that. Thank you.
So, on this, we now go to other reports. We'll get back to the, we need a vote to approve the minutes. Or no, we already did that because it was in there. Do you have any reports to make on your activities, Sheila?
Yes, I do, I'm sure, but Pat's going to go first because I can't, I have to review my week of what I've been doing because it's
hard to
been very
remember what
busy.
you did 2 days
I know,
ago.
I don't write them all down, so,
Well, I can report on the meeting with the,
oh, I know.
at the legislature last week.
Yes.
I went up to Sarah Peak and Cleon Turner, organized the meeting with the speaker regarding the local option, hotel motel, vacation rentals, expanding the hotel motel option to vacation rentals and timeshares. And of course, that was the day that all the news came out about DeMacy and the jury's verdict. So the speaker was totally tied up with the media. But we did meet with the chairman of the Committee on Municipalities. His name is Jay Kaufman. And he stayed for the entire, we actually met for 2 hours. It was amazing. I thought it would take like 20 minutes. And then one of the chief aide from the speaker's office came. And we had a very interesting discussion. Sheila Vanderhoff was there from Eastham. And of course, all our delegation was there, all of them. Cleon, Sarah.
Demetrius?
No, Demetrius, I should have said. Demetrius wasn't there.
Was Tom Bernardo there?
No,
Representing?
no. But
Would be
Tim
Randy
Madden was
Hunt
there,
and,
Dave Vieira was there,
Uh,
Randy Hunt came in.
What about Susan Gifford?
No, I don't think it affected.
Dave Vieira was there, though.
Yeah. And Provincetown was represented, and I said Sheila Vanderhoff was there. Gosh, I can hardly remember. There was like a whole room full of people. And we each made their presentations to the chairman, Chairman Kaufman, about the issues and about the inequity. So I think even the representative from the Speaker's office really understood the fact that this is really an equity issue, that other like hotels and motels are paying the tax, and some of the vacation rental, the condos, the private homes are not. And now the chairman was very clear in telling us that the legislature, if you use the word tax, they won't even talk about it, because they have already decided that they are not increasing any taxes anywhere, but that they saw that this issue was really more of an equity issue than anything else. And also the fact that the vacationing public seems to be more interested in larger spaces, like condos and homes, as opposed to hotels and motels. They come with their families. They want more space. They want to be able to go to the Stop and Shop and buy their groceries and cook and not go out to eat as much. So they're really looking for a larger space than for more people. And of course, it's very, it's more appealing to them as well if they don't pay the tax, I suppose. You don't know how many people actually look at that. I mean, most of us, if we have to go to Boston or travel or decide to go somewhere, you know, you say, well, what is a tax in the state? I mean, oftentimes you don't. Some people do. So all in all, they were very receptive to our presentation and told us that they would attempt to move it forward through the legislature, and we'll see what happens. So, but I think it was time very well spent. We learned a lot from it.
Anything else?
No, I can't think of anything else at the moment.
Jill?
You know that we're working on the executive, the 10-year plan on the regional network to end homelessness. So the work I did have my subcommittee meet. We went through our second meeting of that, and we're putting together a draft so that we can incorporate it into this plan. And that's going very well, and that's all focusing on senior issues. And I'm not sure if anybody's listening, but on NPR they're doing a focus study on Alzheimer's. And Molly Purdue was on there this morning, and I do want to reach out to Molly, although she's more in policy, she's not really on the ground. So I was going to invite her in on this, but it wasn't appropriate for her. But they're just discussing this and about our aging, population here. We exceed everybody in the country, and we're about 15 years ahead. They feel as far as our looking at how are we going to deal with this. I mean, we're already there where other communities are not looking at their aging population as closely right now. So these are issues that we really do have to keep in our mind when we are going forward with policies and strategies. And I know that this says, that they incorporate all of these things, but this is an issue for us in elder care, elder services, Alzheimer's. These are all things that are going to be weighing on our particular region. So that I think we need to keep in the forefront. Duffy had its ribbon cutting this week, yesterday, I believe it was. And day before yesterday, could have been, it was yesterday, and it feels like, but they invited me to speak because I am, they are partners with us in this regional network, and it was their ribbon cutting. So Congressman Keating was there, and he actually said very good focus. He was able to focus on the component that we have that's anything of a success in helping people prevention of homelessness, or having people successfully transition from being homeless to housing and have that, have it a retention rate, is the case management component. As we all know, you can give people money, you can give them housing, you can help them with their mental or addiction problems for a little while, but if they get out there and something bad happens, oh, see, I can't, woe is me, I don't deserve this. You need someone there to keep you on the ball and say, all right, it's okay to make a mistake, we gotta keep on going. And that is where they have been able to always incorporate in their grants that case management component, which gives them a great success rate in housing. So they were great. It was a lovely, lovely ribbon cutting. I think some of the reps wanted to be there. Sarah Peak stopped by. Demetrius it was anticipated, but we didn't see him, and so Congressman Keating did focus in on that case management component on what that is a success. So I was glad to see he zeroed in on what works and what doesn't. And so it was a lovely, lovely morning, and I was happy to represent the county and the regional network. So,
just a little follow-up. I was looking at my notes. There are currently 5 home rule petitions now before the legislature from the Cape on the vacation rental taxes. And they're all different. They all have different components to them. I noticed the one in Falmouth that was approved by the town meeting was very general. So things could be added to it because town meeting left it that way. But it seemed as though at the end of the discussion that it might be more helpful for the legislature if all 5 towns could come up with the same pieces to their petition, the same content, so that when they proposed it, the legislature would have one and not the other. The other point they made was that the legislature usually likes to approve petitions of this nature, where they are tax related, even though there's already the tax, it's just not equitable. And they would like to see it apply to all cities and towns, not just certain cities and towns. So perhaps we thought if the petition were similar or the same, just one petition, but it would affect anyone that could utilize the options. So we're working on that part too. That's for my notes.
Well, I think that people should know that that a lot of the homeless issues sort of go through an evolution, and that people should be aware that through Sheila's efforts about 2 years ago, in let's say in focusing the opportunity that the county had to act as a honest broker and a source of collaboration, that indeed we've seen a lot of progress with that, and that part has shown significant progress. So I congratulate you for let's say for initiating that. But of course we would be remiss if we didn't mention how much hard work Beth Albert has done.
Beth Albert has done a tremendous amount of work. Alan Trebat became our regional coordinator, and this was all to go back. I mean, just you touched upon it. There was money coming from the state. It was decided that the county, through discussions with HAC, Rick Presbury and myself actually did, recognize that the county was the best person because we are we don't have housing issue, we're not trying to promote our own housing initiatives. So therefore we were the honest broker, and we could do that oversight of that grant money coming through. And Beth really has made sure that there has never been with Mark, with her, there's never been any money given out that there wasn't a report on how the previous money was spent, who it went to. So that is all very well accounted for. She's done a fabulous job in that. Mark has assisted. And it has helped people come together and sort of take, where's my little piece of that pie, and really keep focused on the issue of the homelessness, and how can we reduce it, if not that lofty goal of ending it, which is still on most of our minds. It's always something to shoot for, but it's going to be, we can't just feel that that's our final goal, because we'll be setting ourselves up for failure.
Did you see Steve's signal?
1 minute.
Oh, 1 minute.
1 minute.
In 1 minute, I can tell you that Beth has prepared a report on the community response
Yes,
addressing
I read that. It's
suicide and
very,
depression
very
among men on Cape Cod. They did a great job on the reporting and making this more aware, creating awareness among all the people on Cape Cod, which is really good.
It's very important.
She did a really good job with this.
And do you want me to do a tape change?
Are we going to postpone, or are we?
I have some more.
Okay.
Okay, tape change. We are indeed.
Okay. My report, we all went to the Chamber of Commerce dinner last week. Last Wednesday. The most important point to me was their interest in supporting wastewater issues on Cape Cod, and I believe that both Paul Neswicki and Andrew Gottlieb are aware of it and are contacting them. We went to the Goat Expo, which we talked about. I went to the Barnstable County Children, Youth and Families seminar, and they were looking at strategies to communicate with the young adults in order to hold them here on the Cape and find out what kinds of ways they could communicate with them going forward. The Human Service Needs Committee in the town of Barnstable has picked substance abuse issues as a place of focus that they're going to communicate to the town as far as going forward. I already mentioned on County Charter I had was it Laura Kelly from Save Cape and Maxine Wolfset who did that video, and hopefully we'll get that integrated into the rest of it as far as this overall interest that we're showing as county commissioners on vegetative management. Did you have something?
I just wanted to say something about that film. I met Maxine and she gave me the film as well, and we were talking about it, and I had said to her, the other thing you have to consider here is that, we know that there's going to be a benefit of reducing overall pesticides, but are there any unintended consequences? And this is what the natural resources brought up. And so say you have this outbreak of Phragmites or some other invasive species, and it starts choking all of the natural habitat and natural species of your local area. That is a time that when you have to sort of consider these things. And she said, yeah, I know, I thought about the Phragmites, but I made sure I left that out. So I said, well, for a balanced report on there, you might have wanted to incorporate that, you know, that section in.
Well, yeah, I
So-
think on the program, she quoted Klingon saying that the things that have solved problems in the past have caused problems, you know, in the present. And there was an article on bed bugs, I think it was in the
Right.
Sunday New York Times, and
Right.
it said that the ones that had survived the DDT sprays back in the 60s have
Right.
now become up to be a more resistant strain,
Right.
which are harder to eradicate. So, you know, that's the residual effect of antibiotics and
Exactly.
the reduction of our immune response is all part of these things that all have to be taken into consideration.
Right.
Unintended consequences are things that we are now more responsible for because we're smarter, so that's
Right.
all part of this.
Right.
Okay, so we had that, and then I went to the Workforce Job Summit up in Sturbridge. It was the second one that they had. Senator Wolf made a case for government being the choice to lead, to make those choices today, which would have an effect on what comes 30 years from now, and said that business who are tied to the 90-day cycle of meeting shareholder value and enhancement are not really interested or motivated to participate in long-term solutions. Government is the place that that resides. And I thought that he got quite a response. There is going to be a listening tour that was said by Secretary Goldstein,
Right.
with regard to giving people an opportunity to suggest what direction economic development activities should be. My personal concern was I wish that we had some sort of a specific outcome that they were pointing towards, but it sounds like they're going to go on a tour and they'll be coming to this area, and people are encouraged to come in and talk about what they'd like to see for their particular area. So that that's coming up, and that's all.
Are you going to, there's also a redistricting hearing, a
That's
listening
tonight,
tour on
isn't
I
redistricting.
thought it was last Monday. Did they?
No, it wasn't last Monday,
No.
it's this week.
It's this week.
Is it Friday or tomorrow?
I'm not
I
sure
have it,
which-
hopefully I have it
I
in
thought
here.
it was last Monday. at
No,
6.
it's going to be at the Four Cs.
Yeah.
Dan Wolf is on the redistricting
Yeah.
committee, and this is because of the census. Now we're looking at, we're losing a congressman seat, and even our own district of our own representatives is going to change its complexion and location. So these are, this is a good way to find out about what that is, and of course, hopefully, I put it in my calendar when I read it.
Yeah, see if you can find it, because I had it on the wrong date, apparently.
But it's, I don't believe it has occurred. I think it's the 27th, I want to
I
say.
would say Tuesday night, I thought.
That's
Is that the
Monday.
20th?
I thought it was a Monday
That's
at
next
6.
Monday.
So it's next Monday, so it's
At
next
6
Monday.
Is it 4 Cs?
27th, isn't it?
Is it at 4 Cs?
Yeah, at
Good,
6
'cause-
o'clock.
Yes, it's 4C, 6 o'clock, Monday, the
Okay.
27th.
Because Senator Wolf made the comment that why did John Turney leave when he must not know that he and Senator Clippage, who were there, anyway, that were on the redistricting committee. Perhaps if he knew that, he would have stayed for the whole meeting.
Right,
But that's
right.
another story.
Yeah.
Okay, but anyway, that was the second annual conference that they've had on this, looking at solutions. The final thing was that they did have kids that had gone through the city jobs program.
Yes.
And one of them had graduated from Latin last year and finished his first year at Harvard, and the other one graduated from a Worcester school and was on a full book for 4 years at WPI. So, these are all kids that got the $1,800 a year jobs, for the summer. So, it was certainly proof that the program works. Okay, I don't have anything else. Does anybody else have any under new business? Okay, having nothing under new business, I would ask for a motion that we adjourn.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
We adjourn.